Hi everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Daydream Nation, and today we've got probably one of the most difficult panel chats that I've ever had to do, covering two albums of Radiohead. So we've got this little number here, the Bends,
Where am I going?
versus the Titanic, OK Computer.
Yes.
So what we're going to do is we're going to have a little bit of a chat about both albums and provide our preference. So basically, these are two albums that have been voted in many critics' polls as probably at least top 50 greatest albums of the 20th century. OK Computer, I think, was topping the NME poll for a considerable years. It popped off Sergeant Pepper's. It's still ranked very highly. Not sure about the Rolling Stones' latest 100 list. Not that I care, but Radiohead is always ranked very highly, along with their other discography. And I have to say, this is probably one band from my personal perspective that comparing the first album, Pablo Honey, to the Bends was what the hell? It's sort of like you wouldn't expect that the band would come up with such a complex, emotional, musical effort, the Bends comparative to Pablo Honey. But we'll talk more about that. So without further ado, hello, Todd, and hello, Grant. How are you
Hey,
going
hello,
today?
Peter. How are you? Doing
Good, good,
good.
good,
Doing
good.
well.
So, all right. So what we'll do, we'll just go around the ground. So, Todd, tell me about your experience with Radiohead, the Bends, and OK Computer, and what your preference is.
Okay. Well, I when Radiohead first came around, when Pablo Honey came out, I was not super crazy about Creep. In my city, Atlanta, the radio went totally nuts for Creep. I mean, just like, and I liked it, but I didn't. I actually didn't buy the album, and I got the album as a promo, like I don't know, a year or so later, and I thought it was okay, but it didn't really resonate with me. And when the Bends came out, I absolutely loved the songs that they played on the radio about it, but I was a little late buying it because I wasn't totally convinced that I was going to really like the whole thing. But my impressions but anyway, the reason why I said the things I said before was that I sort of had an attitude about the music that was coming out in, I guess that was 95, 96, when alternative radio was really starting to pick up in the States. I'm not sure what it was doing in other parts of the world, but I felt like Radiohead and Beck and some of the things that all came out at the same time, I was not totally on board with them. I was still very much classic alternative. I was still very much Elvis Costello, The Cure, and and prog rock and stuff like that. So I liked Radiohead when the first album came out, but I wasn't totally sold on it. But the Bends, when I finally got around to getting it, I was really super impressed with it. And one of the things I love about it is that it kind of has, it starts out a little, not, it doesn't come roaring out of the gate, but by the time you get to track two, really track three, it kind of goes bam, 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 bam. It's like really strong song followed by another really strong song, and an even stronger song, and it just kind of keeps going. And it was a real slow burn for me, but I really, really, really enjoyed it. And it was funny because when OK Computer came out, I had just moved to California and I was really preoccupied with a lot of stuff in my life, and I was a little bit late getting it. I don't know, not as late as I was getting the Bends, but maybe like a month or two. And my first impression of was that I was really happy that it had Mellotron on it. Apart from at that time, apart from a couple of tracks here and there from Crowded House, nobody was putting the Mellotron on their records at all. So I think what ends up happening with OK Computer a lot is that people think of it as a prog rock album, but I wouldn't say that. But the Mellotron does make you wonder if that's what they were going for. But my assessment of it is that this is what happens when I play these two records. And this week, getting ready for the show was the same as it usually is for me. If I start with the Bends, I think, oh, this is just such a fantastic album. I like it better than OK Computer. And then I listen to OK Computer, and I'm like, oh no. I'm not sure which one I like better, but I think I like OK Computer better. So that's really the way it is for me. I'm like this with them, and I guess the most another thing that about Radiohead for me was that when Kid A came out, I didn't like it at all, which is strange for somebody like me because I listen to a lot of prog rock and I like to think of myself as somebody who has a lot of patience for changes in direction and stuff like that. But for me, every Radiohead album after that was a little bit, and I'll relate how this goes with OK Computer in a minute, but I felt like Kid A and Amnesiac, and then all the albums after that, I felt like they kind of stopped playing like a band. And I mean, I feel really strongly that bands should do whatever they want, and if they evolve into a genre that's almost not rock, I usually support that. But I feel like Radiohead kind of got so fragmented as far as the kinds of songs that they did that I sort of lost interest in them as a band. And I feel like on OK Computer, you can sort of feel that happening. Like the Bends feels like an album where all of the songs are rock songs, and there's a lot of variety in them, but they're all, they all sound like a full band. OK Computer is like that too, but you can sort of see them moving into a direction. I don't know what you'd call that, like post rock, or what do they call that, where rock bands get really, really ambitious and not all the songs have drums on them, and you know what I mean?
Probably
they almost became like ambient or
electronica.
Or
which is interesting because I like, ambient music and I like electronica and stuff like that. But I guess there's always just a little bit of stubborn fan in me that wants, you want bands to do what you want them to do. And so I feel like OK Computer, you can sort of feel them heading in a direction where they're going to be like, okay, they're going to get more experimental after this, because like you said earlier, the jump between the first album and the Bends is just huge, and it really kind of knocks you out. And then OK Computer comes along, and it's even more so that way. It's even more experimental. It's even more borderline proggy, to the point where I'm always amazed and a little bit impressed, actually, that OK Computer was as popular as it was. I mean, I know it's gotten a lot of attention as far as, critical accolades over the years that are pretty consistent, but at the time it was really popular. And I was impressed by that when it came out, because I thought, this isn't the easiest album to get into for somebody who's just a casual fan of whatever's on the radio. But I always was real impressed that it did really well. I think that you can, I wanted to mention something about influences, and I don't really know of a lot of them, but I remember that one of my favorite bands is Marillion. And at the time, Marillion got really influenced by Radiohead and OK Computer. And I actually started before that because they did a cover of Fake Plastic Trees, which ended up on the B-side of one of their singles. And Marillion got early obsessed with two bands in the late 90s and early 2000s. They got obsessed with Crowded House, and that was kind of fleeting. They didn't really stick with that. There's a couple of songs in the late 90s era where you can tell that they were kind of trying to sound like Crowded House. But Radiohead, I think, became them being influenced by Radiohead, I think, kind of became part of their DNA, and I think some of that stuck with them. I think there's similar vocal there's a similar vocal thing that's happening between the two vocalists, between Radiohead and Marillion, that I think Marillion kind of stuck with. And so yeah, if I was to compare them and try to figure out which one's better, I think this one I might like a little better, but I think this is probably a better album. So this was really hard for me. I couldn't really, I can't come up with a winner. whichever one I'm listening to is the one that I like the best. And then when I move to the other one, I like that one better.
That sort of situation may be a way, and I'm definitely like you, and I'll talk more about it shortly, but what are the strongest songs on each album that you gravitate to? So if you had to say your favorite Radiohead songs, are your favorite Radiohead songs more on OK Computer or more on the Bends? That's maybe you could use that as a tiebreaker.
That's a really good way of putting it, because it's funny when I look at the track listings for the Bends, tracks don't stand out as much as, I think the album really gets going in track 2, and between track 2 and 7, I think is really the high point. So I think the Bends, High and Dry, Fake Plastic Trees, and Bones, and then
Nice Dream.
Yeah, and then Nice Dream, and I feel like that's really the part of the album that I like the best. And on OK Computer, I feel like it's easier to come up with favorites, and so I come up with Subterranean, Homesick, Alien, Exit Music for a Film, and Letdown, and Karma Police. But you know what? That's interesting. Those tracks are all in the same spot. That's like 3 through 6. And I love No Surprises, and I like The Tourist. So
interesting. Didn't one of us have a recent show about track listing?
About what? Oh, we did. Yeah,
we did.
We did.
Yes, this would count.
Yeah, but what's funny is my impression of one of the impressions I got from OK Computer back when it came out, and I sort of don't feel that way anymore. But I felt like it didn't end as strong as I wanted it to. I felt like with the bombast and the progressive rock elements of it, that I felt like the end of it, I felt like I wanted it to have a big finish, and it sort of doesn't. But I don't feel that way anymore. I feel like it flows just like it ought to.
Absolutely. No, that's very good. And I was going to ask each of you the question, and you sort of covered it, Todd. Do you consider them prog? Because in the day, especially when OK Computer came out, there were a lot of comparisons with, say, Pink Floyd. That was bandied a lot in the British press, comparisons. And I know Tom York sort of was quite dismissive, saying that, no, their influences, well, especially with the Bends, were REM and the Pixies. And maybe, Aphex Twins in some of their later work. But, they didn't really sort of see the Pink Floyd comparisons. So do you think they are a prog band in any shape or form?
I don't really think they're a prog band, but I'm not real precious about, I'm not real sensitive to people saying that bands are prog bands when they're not. A lot of prog fans really don't like that, and they'll get angry and say Radiohead's not a prog band. So I'm not there. I mean, I think it's okay if somebody wants to think of Radiohead as a prog band. I can see that, and I can respect that. But myself personally, I don't really think so. I think of them as having more in common with a band like Death Cab for Cutie, or, a band like that. That's really an indie band that has worked in orchestration and longer songs and that kind of experimentation. So yes and no. If somebody says, I think Radiohead's a prog band, I don't disagree with that, but I wouldn't personally say that. I think they're an ambitious indie rock band.
Yeah. So somebody who likes Yes or ELP, and you played them a Radiohead album, would that be in their wheelhouse, or would it be a little bit too much outside, too far outside their
might be outside?
I feel like it's not that far outside, because I know people have done that. I've talked to people on Twitter and stuff like that who have been like when I heard Radiohead, I didn't know what to think, because somebody told me that they were like a prog band, and if I liked Pink Floyd, I would like them. And they said I ended up liking them. I don't know how much they are like Pink Floyd. So that's kind of I think prog fans like them, but they'll stop at saying, "Oh, they're a prog band."
Yeah, I wouldn't call them a prog band, but I would call them progressive.
Yes,
for sure. So if that makes sense,
it does.
I mean, these guys run another level as far as I'm concerned.
And especially some of their instrumentation, like Paranoid Android or Karma Police. It's like a movement in 3 songs. which has got all the hallmarks of prog, changing key, different signature. That's probably where they kind of picked it up. But yeah, no, really good one, Todd. Grant, what are your thoughts on these two monolithic albums?
This is the way I look at these two records. I originally was turned on to OK Computer first, and as soon as I heard it, I've used this before, but you have like these life-changing moments. But when I heard this record, it was unlike anything else that was going on right at that moment. I mean, the bends, as far as I'm concerned, is very, it's like this. I would say the bends is like Revolver, and I would say OK Computer is like Pepper in the Radiohead camp. Both records are 5-star records. Both records are 5, no doubt. This OK Computer would be their Pepper, and I would say Revolver is the bends. So what they took from the bends, they just pushed it a bit more with OK Computer, because both albums, tone-wise, technically sound very similar. Drums sound very similar. Guitars sound similar. There's a lot of things that overlap. But OK Computer takes it one step further. But if you look at Revolver and Sgt. Pepper, those really are two different records. I mean, obviously. I mean, big changes. Beatles were going 100 mile an hour at that point. And Radiohead's a similar thing, because their first album was totally different than the bends. I mean, the first album is just basically a grunge record. I don't know if that's really what they sounded like or what they wanted to do. I think I read something about that really isn't what they were really about on that record. That might be something to do with the record company pushing them in that direction or whatever. But comparing that to the bends is like leaps and bounds. The bends is a brilliant record. At the time, though, when it came out, it kind of got mixed reviews. I mean, the guy from the Chicago Tribune gave it like 1 star, just thought it was alternative rock answer to the Moody Blues. That's what he called it.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. I'd forgotten about that. There was the reviews were harsh for that.
Yeah, I know in the British press they got sort of middling, like if it was Q Magazine or something, it'd be a 3-star, but 1 star is harsh.
That's what I thought, because for the most part, this record, back when it came out, Chicago Tribune gave it 1, but let's see, Rolling Stone gave it 3.5 stars. Which I think's low.
It's low, but
most people are giving it like 4 stars, 3 stars, 3.5. But when they look back, when people have reviewed this album later, they're looking back on it. Yes, exactly. They're looking at it like, holy crap, this is monumental. We're getting like Rolling Stone album guy gave it 5 stars, Uncut gave it 4. Encyclopedia of Popular Music, I'm not sure what that is, but they gave it 5 stars, and All Music gives 5 stars, but they always do. But I think it was reviewed much better on later in its life, because both of those albums side by side, both were monumental. There was nobody that sounded like that. And you still put those records on now, and it's still just as fresh. Hard to believe we're talking 1995, 1997.
That seems like just a couple of years ago to me, but I know that it's longer than that.
I know. I still think, if I hear Hold Me Now by the Thompson Twins, I still think that's current.
Yeah, it's like a 10-year-old song to me.
I'm not sure about that.
It's not a 10-year-old song.
I'm telling you, Peter, I know it doesn't make sense, but that's the way I think. Anything in the 80s on is still current.
Yeah, well, for me, Gary Newman, I'm diverging a little bit, but if I hear Gary Newman, that sounds current, because a lot of the modern electronica sort of mines into that. But anyway, that's a divergent.
Yeah, 1979, Cars, which if you think about it, I know we're diverging, but if you think about it, how different was that compared to everything else?
Are your friends
that
electric?
That whole album.
Yeah,
incredible. That'd be another. There you go. There you go, Peter. Another show.
And it's Kid A. There's a bit of a lineage back to Are Your Friends Electric? because everything in that sort of, I mean, this is where we are going off the track a little bit. That does go back to that
fine.
Gary Newman. But yeah, I agree with you, Todd. Where did the years go?
Yeah. I had somebody, I saw somebody back on the Gary Newman thing briefly, I promise. I saw somebody say they were comparing, it was one of those quiz questions on Twitter, like comparing Gary Newman to some other artist. And they were like, Gary Newman doesn't even play any instruments. It's just all programming. And I'm just like, Gary Newman's band was a rock band. I think people get caught up in somebody who's a keyboardist and they think that they're not a rock musician. But it's really all right. I'm done talking about Gary Newman. Back to the topic.
That's all right. We're good. Gary Newman's good because I think without Gary Newman, we might not have this.
Yeah, true.
But
yeah, definitely.
Peter, how you were saying that a lot of people hear that Pink Floyd influence. I hadn't read anything about that, but all I kept thinking when I was listening to the Bends and OK Computers that hear so much Pink Floyd in there.
There you go.
And I never heard that before, but I kept thinking that.
Yeah, well, it was more Anglo-British. A lot of the NME and all the press, they were really pushing the Pink Floyd. And I know Tom York was getting the shits about it. He just, no, you know. And you can imagine what he'd be like about it.
Yeah, well, you would know.
But that was during a time when prog rock it's funny because mid-90s is when prog rock was really starting to get really good. But and it was starting to resurge. But as far as the mainstream was concerned, I mean, Marillion was a prog band, and their sales pitch was literally, "We're not a prog band. Really, we're not." I mean, that's what they used to put on their advertising. And so there was a time when it was it was not fashionable at all to be considered that, and that probably their reaction was probably part of that, a reaction to that.
Well, OK Computer has sold 8 million units, and that is for such an album that is not the most accessible commercial. That is amazing. And I'm just wondering how many people in the day, your Yes fans, your ELP fans, your Pink Floyd fans, were looking for the next sugar hit, actually did a bit of a rabbit hole dive into the Radiohead through OK Computer. Paranoid Android and Karma Police were being played on Australian radio. And I'm not talking about alternative college radio. They were their rock radio. It was being played, the full 6-minute version. It was just weird.
Yeah, that was happening. I was in Atlanta in 95, 96, and in 97, I moved to Los Angeles. And in both cities, they were playing those songs on the regular rock radio.
Yeah. See, I didn't hear them there. I just heard them on the alternative stations. They played them, regular rock radio in Central Ohio. Nothing.
And they had some great MTV video clips. They were like movies in themselves. Like one of them, some of them look like a David Lynch movie. Really fantastic.
They're like out on the road.
Yeah.
It's just a very bizarre movie.
Yeah.
I mean, very bizarre video.
Yeah.
But doing some research, there was a lot of people compare OK Computer to Pepper, though, on how influential it's been. And, I would have to agree with that because it was so fresh and new and it changed and it influenced so many people, You
wouldn't have Coldplay, unfortunately.
You wouldn't have Coldplay.
Muse.
You wouldn't have a lot of bands.
Muse.
Yeah. I was just going to say Muse is another one.
The whole genre of guys singing emotionally and pouring their heart out, using their falsetto. Because in the mid-90s, you had a lot of the artists, Jeff Buckley, Tom York, just expressing themselves through their voice and just belting it out.
Yeah, Tom York's just full of emotion and the production, just lends it to that. I mean, it just kind of grips you. His performance on OK Computer, oh hell, even the Bends, just absolutely stunning.
What about
I was going to say the guitar work on these records are phenomenal.
Yeah,
Ed O'Brien, he's
Mm-hmm.
the secret weapon. He squeaks and squalls of the guitar, the feedback, amazing.
And you wouldn't think that like what would be a good subterranean homesick alien. It's very atmospheric, and it still has that Pink Floyd thing coming together. No, not that. Paranoid Android's what I was thinking. Sorry, lot going on here.
Yeah.
But it's that middle part just explodes. I mean, the guitar just comes in full tilt, extreme distortion. Very violent sounding, very abrupt playing. You just wouldn't think anything like that would just come out of your speakers. It just jars you, takes you in to some degree.
And a lot of variety in the different kinds of guitar sounds, because you think of a song like No Surprises, and it's almost like a keyboard sound, and a lot of, just the different that big wall of sound stuff, and then some very intricate, very melodic things happening.
There's a lot of acoustic guitar on these records.
Yeah.
I love the acoustic guitar. I love the way. You know what I like about their song structure is that they'll do a song in a major key. So you've got major, minor, major, happy, minor, melancholy, bit sad. So you're listening to a Radiohead song and it's in a major key, it's happy, and then they'll do a key change, and emotionally it just turns the whole song, and you're just not expecting it. And that's all these little surprises that each of these Radioheads songs have, where they just do these little subtle key changes, and it just changes the song. The light and shade, I really think they picked up on the Pixies. Pixies were the art of doing the light and the shade, which Nirvana picked up off, and the whole Nevermind album is like a Nirvana, is like a Pixies throwback in a way. And Radiohead they just do the dramatics, the light and the shade brilliantly.
Yeah.
But Ed O'Brien, he is a killer guitarist. And Johnny Greenwood, he's great support. And even the drummer, Phil Selway, his drumming is phenomenal. It even gets even better on the King of Limbs, which his drumming is just super phenomenal on that album. But he just does a little bit behind the beat, but it's just so effective.
And he's such a unique player too.
Jazzy, a little bit jazzy.
Almost jazzy, but his tonality, it's like Neil Peart. It's Neil Peart.
Yeah.
Charlie Watts. But you hear him and you can go, well, that's definitely Radiohead. What I mean? It's an absolutely stunning drumming work. Absolutely stunning. Yeah. Great stuff. Love it. But I think anybody is going to get into these records, I think instead of picking tracks off, I think you really need to listen to these as works of art, as a whole album, just like Pepper. You want to immerse yourself in the whole thing and listen to it, because OK Computer really is just it's a work of art. And for it to being so progressive and kind of out there, it was hard. I couldn't believe that when I first heard it, I just automatically took it all in and I immediately loved it. So there's something to that. I don't know how to put my finger on it. It's progressive and kind of out there, but then it's accessible. This is the last time they've ever did anything like this before. This was the perfect blend of everything, because Kid A, I love Kid A. It's no OK Computer, even though there's a lot of great reviews on Kid A, but it's just so far out there, though I love the way it sounds.
Yeah,
I feel bad about my relationship with, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Some of the stuff on Kid A is so sparse.
Yeah.
And
what I was going to say is I feel bad. I feel kind of bad about my relationship with Kid A, because I feel like I need to try harder, because I feel like it's very out of character for me to have gone all these years and still kept the opinion that Kid A is just an album that I just can't get into. So it's one of those things where I keep it in the back of my mind. I have to try harder. I have to try that again.
Well, Todd, you've been listening to these. We've been studying these. We were trying to prepare for this show. I would, since you're in this Radiohead mindset,
now's the time, is what you're saying.
I would say now, maybe you'll get it. Yeah. And I'm going to listen to it. When we're done, I'm going to put on Kid A.
Well, and
because I do love Kid A.
My impression of these albums, thinking about what I thought when I first heard them, and thinking about what I thought in the last week when I've been, picking them up again after being away from them quite a long time. I don't feel like they're difficult to get into at all. Not even not the slightest. But at the time when they came out, I wasn't sure. I kind of had to be sold. They didn't.
Well, Todd,
they didn't
you're
hit
a
me like
different
they hit
person
you,
now.
Grant. Uh-huh,
you're a different person.
Yeah. Kid A, I think, is arguably their greatest work. I may be a little bit contrarian, but I think it's my number one.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and that was a slow burn. When I first heard it, I thought, what is this? But in that era, in 2000, electronica was just exploding. Chemical Brothers, Prodigy, all sorts of stuff. And they were just taking it in. And I think it's one of those albums that years later you realize what a brilliant piece of work it is. So, Todd, I heartily recommend giving it a burl.
Yeah, I think
in the context.
I think it's time. I actually have a theory about bands that super creative bands. I think of like Radiohead and like REM and bands like that. I feel like I'm saying this as a prog fan, so take it for that. Think of that when I'm presenting this. But I feel like all bands eventually become more progressive if they keep going, if they have the stamina and they can get along and they keep going. But bands that are like crazy creative, and I think of Radiohead as one of those bands, they move really fast. It's like you were saying about the Beatles. They moved really fast, and Radiohead moved really fast. REM did that too, but it took them longer because I think they stumbled on something that was really successful, and they did it the same way for a really long time. But eventually them too. I mean, they made Up and the albums that came after that are really adventurous and change a lot about the instrumentation. But Radiohead just went crazy fast. I mean, they went from their first album to this, to Kid A, and then the King of Limbs, which is just crazy creative. And I didn't expect that at all. So I just feel like that's a testament to how creative and how talented they are, is that they were like, we're moving on.
Absolutely. And they dropped the King of Limbs on the net. And they said, you choose how much you think the album's worth. That was revolutionary.
Very revolutionary.
They dropped it. Yeah, they dropped it on the net, and they said, this is on honor value. We believe music should be shared with everyone. You pay how much
didn't they do that for On Rainbows, in Rainbows too?
I thought it was in Rainbows.
No. Okay. Sorry. You're right. In Rainbows. Correction.
But still,
just doing that is just so revolutionary.
Yeah, I downloaded that album and I paid $10 for it because I was like, I'm not giving them $1 after them doing that.
My computer was so slow, Todd. It took all day. It's just.
See, I didn't download mine. I just bought the CD.
Yeah.
But you know what you were saying about how Radiohead just moved so fast. You just mentioned that. The other topic I brought up before that maybe we want to look into is the band Talk Talk, because Talk Talk was the Radiohead of the 80s. Think about, I don't know if you know Talk Talk, but their first album, very new wave, very, British pop. By the time they got to their last album, you wouldn't even know it's the same band. I mean, they moved even quicker than Radiohead, probably.
But I think it's a similar thing. You got at least one person. There could be. I mean, I think of Mark Hollis, but it could be more than that. I don't know that much about Talk Talk, but somebody who's just so extraordinarily talented. They have so many things that they want to do, and so they just take whatever their project is and they just move it forward really fast. Yeah. And I think Talk Talk is another example of that.
Yeah. You ever heard the Mark Hollis solo record?
I haven't.
Yeah.
I need to.
It up. Yeah, you need to pick it up. I think that's the only solo record he did after Talk Talk. It sounds like Talk Talk, but it's incredible. The instrumentation, the sound of it. Oh, it's great. Highly recommended if you can pick it up. Absolutely. You can't find it in the wild. You'd have to buy it off Discogs or something.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But
it didn't sell.
But looking at the discography of Radiohead, I think that with the Bends, that came out in 95. I think everyone that gravitated and grooved on that album, there may have been an audience that were slightly disappointed that OK Computer went so proggy, because it did appeal to those arena style soundings of like U2. So U2 had put out Zeropa the year before. They were on a hiatus, and the Bends dropping had a lot of that big sound that kind of, you know, partially would fill the U2 sort of arena sound. And then when it went to OK Computer, I know a lot of people were kind of disappointed because they wanted it more in the U2, the big anthemic type of sounding songs. And then they were further disappointed when, gee whiz, when Kid A came out and went electronica. And I think that's the thing about Tom York, because I don't think, you know, a lot of people, he doesn't play up to people's expectation. Tom does what Tom wants to do.
Yeah. And
he evolves the band. So everyone wanted a Bends Part 2. He didn't give it. He gave them a little prog album.
Well, the record company, when they were getting ready to do the Bends, they were getting a lot of pressure from the record company to come up with another Creep. And they didn't want to do that. They hated Creep. They did not even want to go that route. So they got a lot of pressure to do that. And, you know, a lot of the fans, when the Bends came out, they were expecting more like Creep. They didn't get it. So it's almost like Radiohead constantly let people down to some degree, but then again, they didn't. You know, the original hardcore fans back at the first album, you know, they wanted more of that, and they'd never return to that.
But I think ultimately, you wouldn't want them to do that. You wouldn't want Tom York to say, okay, you know what, we're going to make another record like OK Computer, because in my experience, whenever a band does that, be careful what you wish for, because you get, oh, that sounds like this song part 2. This sounds like that song Junior. You know what I mean? I think it's too hard for bands to fall into that kind of a hole. And I think you don't, as much as I would like to have another album like these two, I don't want one, because I don't think that he would ever want to do it. And if he did it, he'd probably be unhappy about it. And nobody wants that either.
But I clearly remember in the day, there was a lot of people that were disappointed about, you know, they wanted a Bends 2 and OK Computer to Kid A. Oh, where's OK Computer? Where are the guitars? There's no guitars. And as I said, Tom, being very brave with the band, pushed it in that direction, and we're all better for it. I mean, you had to work hard for it. When I heard that Kid A song, and, you know, I got caught sucking a lemon, you know, that the mantra, the first song, I'm thinking, wow, what is this? It makes you really work hard for it. A song called the National Anthem, which is just music, distortion. It's a great album, but you've got to work for it. And Todd, give it a go, I reckon.
You'll get it. Just give it. It's like Trap Mass Replica. You got to play it over and over again.
Well, and I actually, being somebody who likes keyboards as much as I like guitar, which is not a lot of rock fans are like that. I actually am usually excited when a band does that. Like if they put on an album that doesn't have any guitar, I'm like, here's an album with no guitar. Sucks for you. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I like that kind of thing. Yeah. I think it's brave.
Absolutely. Very brave. Comparing the two albums by theme, I think the Bends is very introspective. It's all about relationships. It's more about the personal. Whereas OK Computer, the topics, it's big, it's cinematic, it's widescreen. And he's picking up on a lot of things that are just relevant today. Social media, alienation, capitalism. They're very anti-capitalist. You know, look at Karma Police. I was reading about what Karma Police is all about, and it was basically Tom was writing in the perspective of the under trudged worker against middle management and putting the middle finger up. So it was like they had this sort of like in joke within the band that the karma police are going to get you, you know, if you do something wrong. All different things like that. But the subject matter is really, it's like 2001. It's just very widescreen, very broad, and a lot of the topics are just so current and relevant today. And that's why I think, Grant, this album has not aged 1 second.
No, it could have came out yesterday.
Hmm.
Any of their stuff could. Maybe not the first album, because that does sound grungy, but all their work post, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, it could have come out anytime.
Have we seen them live? Have you guys seen them live?
No, I haven't.
I have twice. And I saw them on the back of the OK Computer, and one of the greatest live bands I've ever seen. That was just
I'm sure.
And then I saw them on Kid A. Not on the Kid A. They came out on the King of Limbs tour, but it was all off the Kid A sort of album onwards. Not much guitar. It was different, but it was really good as well. So it was interesting. I saw two phases of their career. They actually toured Australia in pubs off Pablo Honey. I didn't see that, off the back of Creep. Creep was a top 5 song in Australia. They had 2 versions. They had the swearing version and the non-swearing version. And but that was a huge hit. And that's been covered so many times.
Tears for Fears do a cover for that. That's really good.
I don't think I've heard that.
Yes, you're right.
It's the B-side to one of their later singles, like in the 90s.
Do they do High and Dry too? I'm sure.
Oh, I'm not sure. Maybe.
I don't know, but I could hear them doing it.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear that.
Hey, Grant, what album do you prefer?
Me?
We're sort of having a yak.
I gave kind of a non-answer to that. So what's yours?
Well, it depends upon what day. I was playing the bends an awful lot, and just the whole first side is just perfect. But I'm going to go with OK Computer because it's just perfection. I like them both. I like Revolver and I like Pepper both the same. It's hard, it's like choosing your favorite child. I think they're both masterpieces.
Yeah, well, lucky I've only got one kid. I have to choose.
Well, you know what I mean? If you really, they were just on fire.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
I guess I'd go OK Computer.
Yeah, OK Computer. And Todd, in the
end, if I had to choose, it would be OK Computer.
Yeah.
But choose. My real answer is whichever one is on.
Absolutely.
There you go.
That's a good one. I'd probably go the Bends, because I'm thinking about songs. Do you listen to a song and it's just sheer perfection? You get a shiver up your spine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that sort of euphoria. When I was listening to the Bends, there was the 3 songs that you were mentioning: High and Dry, Fake Plastic Trees and Bones, Bang Bang Bang, shiver up my spine.
And the transitions between them, the transitions are perfect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So to me, there's more of those moments in the Bends than OK Computer, but it's just marginal. It's both 10 out of 10 albums. So it's, there you go.
OK Computer, I would say, is the best. I guess I'll call it a pop record. Record of the 90s, I would say, is the best. Though it's not my favorite, but I would have to give it that award. And I think over time, I think the acclaim for it just is built, and it's like Pepper for the 90s.
Absolutely. Well, this has been great, guys.
What would be the 70s record? Like the Pepper of the 70s?
Yeah.
You could say Night at the Opera, maybe?
Nah, but think about Night at the Opera.
I would say that.
They hated it. Rolling Stone hated it. They hated Queen. They got horrible reviews all the time.
Well, okay, so Rolling Stone have got it wrong so many times.
Yeah.
I know. I'm going to have to
get... So you mean one that would be considered a creative achievement by the people and by people like Rolling Stone.
I think it'd be fun
that
to
makes
do
the question
a discussion
really
over the different decades, what is the greatest record of that decade?
Yeah.
You know, what's on that level of pepper?
Absolutely.
All these ideas are just flying out.
Yeah. Well, thanks, guys. I think this has been a really, really fun chat. And I, to tell you the truth, I found this was going to be the most daunting conversation in Rock Daydream Nation's career, putting this together. But it's been really fun and kind of easy, just sort of flowing off, because you're talking about two stone cold masterpieces, and yeah, very enjoyable. So, Grant, what have you got coming up on Rock Warehouse? Anything on the Rock channel, the new Rock channel? Please check it out.
Grant's Rock Warehouse. Yes, we did a episode on. What did we do an episode on? Well, we've got. God, I'm brain dead. Todd and I are doing a Matthew Sweet show, ranking the Matthew Sweet albums, and then we're going to do a follow-up show. I don't know if we're going to record them at the same time. We'll figure that out. But we're going to rank his top 10 songs. I wanted to hit Matthew Sweet because no one's doing anything with Matthew Sweet, and I think Matthew Sweet needs some love.
Yeah, well, I might be joining you on that one because I'm a bit of a Matthew Sweet nut. So,
well, you got a lot of records to catch up on. I don't know. And then we're doing another show at the end of the month about Rush instrumental tracks. People always talk about Red Barchetta. Well, let's talk about all those instrumental tracks that Rush has made. They've probably done like 5 or 6 tracks. And the idea for that came, I was playing Roll the Bones in the Car, and the instrumental track, I can't remember the name offhand because I'm brain dead. But man, I was thinking, holy crap, that is something. We should talk about those. Because instrumentally, Rush was just a powerhouse, and we know they're all excellent players. So we're going to be looking at that at the end of the month. Okay. But yeah.
Absolutely.
Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Yeah.
Like, subscribe.
Very good. And Todd, anything coming up?
Well, I don't have my own channel, but I've been appearing on the Contrarians and here on Rock Daydream Nation and on Grant's channel, and also on Ryan's Vinyl Destination. We're doing some 2 albums at a time, going through the catalog of Genesis. And it's official now. I've mentioned this a couple times before, but I wasn't able to say because I wasn't sure whether it was going to happen. But I'm going to be on Rush Fans discussing they're going track by track through Grace Under Pressure, and I'll be doing with a panel. I'll be discussing After Image.
Fantastic.
Wow.
So I'm really excited about it and a little bit nervous because I love that channel and I think they should have 1 million subscribers. So we'll be taping that soon, and I'm not sure when it's going to come out.
Wonderful. Good stuff. And just this channel, please subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation. I dropped a clip with the top 5 AC/DC songs. I just did a chat with Reed Little, which was really good.
Oh, I see that.
Yeah, and that was a good chat. And in about a week's time, we're going to be dropping the Supergroup chat part 2, where we're going to be like scientists in a laboratory with 8 or 9 esteemed panels putting together the parts of a 70s US Canadian hard rock supergroup. And that's going to be a lot of fun. And another bit of a brain stress for everyone because, you've got to put a singer, 2 guitarists, a bass player, and a drummer from bands like Blue Oyster Cult, Kiss, Van Halen, amongst some others. It's going to be maybe a right royal mess, but we'll just see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, please subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation. Drop us our comments. And once again, guys, this was a gas, and we should do it again. We should maybe explore some of the later Radiohead catalogue because the quality is always high.
Once Todd gets all into...
we'll get you there, mate. We'll get you there,
I'll work on it.
Yeah. All right. See you guys later. Bye.
All right.
Bye everybody.